Is everyone in Oregon a hippie? Does Oregon have the prettiest coast in the country? And is Portland really weird? We're going to talk about those things and more. So let's put the umbrellas away because people here don't use those stupid things. We're going to unbox the state of Oregon. And by the way, I'm wearing skinny jeans right now. They're so skinny. I can barely move, but it's awesome. Wow, look at this. The Oregon coastline. Such a pretty place. This rugged coastline might be the most stunningly beautiful stretch of coast in the entire country. It's not always sunny here, but this coast is truly one of a kind. But of course, Oregon isn't all pretty coastline. Actually, ecologically, Oregon is one of the most diverse states in the country. And depending on where you live, the people are different too. To truly understand Oregon, we need to look at the entire state's various regions and understand what each area is like to live in. This is Oregon. It's a pretty big state. In size, it ranks 9th biggest in terms of square miles. There's a lot of parts of this state that are very crowded and many parts that are really isolated, like over here. We'll begin in eastern Oregon. This whole part of the state only has about 200,000 people total. Some entire counties out here only have 7,000 or 8,000 people in them. It's a lot of small towns with lots of elk and mule deer hunters, ranchers, farmers, and lumberjacks. More like Arizona, New Mexico, or even Texas. The old Wild West. Lots of pickups with gun racks and large areas of sagebrush and silence. There are deserts and even snow-capped mountains here and a lot of history. You can still see ruts from where the Oregon Trail passed through here 180 years ago. There's some life to this side of the state though. A lot of eastern Oregon is rural poverty, the kind of place where shopping means heading down to the local farm store. Hermiston is the biggest city in eastern Oregon and it only has 18,000 people. There's a few decent jobs here, but it's slim pickings. Pendleton's out here too. They're known for turning out expensive wool cowboy gear and for hosting rodeos. Hee-haw Pendleton. Now down here in southeastern Oregon, you're going to find the biggest concentration of Mormons in Oregon. 10% of the population down here near Idaho and Malheur County is Mormon. This is also the part of the state where you have the Oregon secessionists. Lots of people down here want to leave Oregon and become part of Greater Idaho. It'll never happen. It's mucho conservative out here, hombre. Many people out here hate Portland because as Portland votes, the state changes. Eastern Oregon isn't too happy about the way things are headed with the free welfare and the drug legalization. The political divide causes friction among Oregonians. More on that later. Eastern Oregon pretty much keeps its own company. Most people in Western Oregon never venture way out here, and you don't hear much about this part of the state in Portland news briefs. But folks in Eastern Oregon are just fine with that. Leave them alone, people. Over here in what is commonly referred to as Central Oregon, the terrain's different. There's a lot of farming and ranching and lumber here as well, but you're on the eastern slope of the Cascade Mountains, so there's also a lot of skiing and hiking and rock climbing and other mountain type stuff. There's a mix between small communities, decent-sized cities, and more country rural living. It's more expensive here for a home than in Eastern Oregon, but still relatively affordable. It's a slower pace of life with a scenic small-town environment. The biggest and most exciting part of Central Oregon is Deschutes County, home to the city of Bend. Bend might be the best place to live in Oregon, which is the main reason Deschutes County is the fastest growing of all Oregon counties. Bend has 100,000 people. It has a small town feel, but it also feels like a big city. If you're into the outdoors, this is the shiznit. It's at the base of Mount Bachelor, which means great skiing. Lots of Oregon people go there on their vacations. Bend has a great beer and art scene, but it's kind of expensive, and home prices are going up daily here. Try $500,000. It'll be $550,000 next year. It's also not a very diverse place. 90% of Bend is white. A lot of people here have dogs. White people with dogs. That pretty much sums up a lot of the people in Oregon, actually. Politically, it leans Democrat, but that's changing too. As more people pour in here and as Bend becomes more of a tech hub, it'll likely get more liberal as time goes on. Up here is an area called the Gorge. This part of the state is where the Columbia River separates Oregon from Washington. It's very windy here, and as such, windsurfing is very popular. Mount Hood is located here, which is the biggest mountain in the state. Hood River and the Dalles both have cute, historic downtowns right along the river, and they have breweries and wineries and places you can buy trinkets that you can nail on your wall. This part of the state is much more small town. It's more expensive, and it's become a place for folks to retire. although some people do make the hour or so commute into Portland for work. Folks here have awesome views. There's also a lot of areas up here for growing things. Half of the nation's winter pears are grown in this part of Oregon. There's also lots of apple and cherry orchards and tons of wild blackberries. Down here in southern Oregon is, you guessed it, more mountains and small towns. Crater Lake is down here too. It's a former volcano that's now a lake. It's really pretty. It's fairly conservative down here. Medford and Ashland are both worth briefly discussing. Medford has 85,000 people and it's growing super fast, but it's turned into a criminal haven. Lots of drugs, homeless, and robberies. It's actually one of the worst places in Oregon for crime. Pretty much the worst place you can live in this entire region of the state, Medford is. The west side of Medford is the worst side of Medford. A few exits south from Medford is Ashland, which is much less ghetto and rundown. It's more expensive too, about $100,000 more for a home. It can be considered relatively quote-unquote hip. There's wine country nearby, and some have said Ashland is the next Napa. I think that's a bit of posturing though. You used to be able to be naked in public here, but they squashed that a while back, thank God. There are lots of California refugees moving to this part of the state. There aren't a lot of jobs in Oregon, so most folks coming from the south are retirees looking for a cheaper, better life. Now there's a misnomer that Oregonians hate Californians. They don't really hate them, as long as they behave. Actually, most of the people moving from California are the ones who actually have values and respect. They don't like California either, except for the homeless druggies moving in. Nobody wants that, and there are plenty of those too. Now, the Oregon coast is totally unique and pretty, and there's a lot of history here. If you drive up Highway 101 along the Oregon coast, you're going to see a mix of small towns and unincorporated communities. Some are well-to-do. Some struggled when lumber and fishing went kaput. Oregon's coast is very rugged and steep in many areas. The little towns that do have beach access cater to tourists for much of the year. You know, places to get taffy and fudge and shovels to dig for agate. Oregon people love collecting all these small pretty rocks. But don't expect all sun in the sand sipping margaritas up here, boy. Oregon's beaches mean sweater weather, even in parts of the summer. Oregon's coast feels damp and chilly for most of the year, and many of its coastal towns are gritty and fairly rusty and weathered. Go into a bar along Oregon's coast and you're likely to see Old Man in the Sea, not Steve Sanders.
Oh, I get it. Joke's on me, huh?
Oregon's coast certainly isn't a destination for up-and-coming families who need lots of amenities or high-paying jobs. Old people like it, though. Down here near Brookings, it's going to be warmer, but as you move north, it gets colder and there's more to do. Coos Bay is a community of 15,000 people, and there's actually a decent-sized main drag with stuff to do. Newport's probably the capital of the Oregon coast. It's an overpriced tourist trap, though, like the rest of the coast, totally beautiful. A bit north of that is Depot Bay, which people rave about. Supposedly it gets more sunshine than other parts of the coast, but I don't see how that's possible. Tillamook is where they make Tillamook cheese. It's a very popular choice of dairy for Oregonians.
Cheese, glorious cheese.
So sumptuous and luscious.
Way up on the northern fringes is Astoria, where they filmed Goonies.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're at Cauldron Point, and what appears to be a pirate ship.
Anything basically north of Newport is going to be a lot more happening since it's closer to Portland. Anyways, there's about 25 actual cities and towns along Oregon's coast and about 50 other communities of various sizes. Each is unique. Many have crummy internet. Most have amazing sunsets and good views of whales passing by. A few are big enough that you'll be entertained for a while. All of them are cold. Now we come to the Willamette Valley. This area along the 5 freeway stretches from about Roseburg to Portland. 70% of Oregon's population lives here. Most of that 70% is in the Portland metro area. In the mountain ranges on both sides of this valley are rumored to be Bigfoots, or Big Feet, however you say it. Down in this valley between the Oregon Coast Range and the Cascades is an area rich for agriculture. There's lots of wineries and orchards and farms here, and many of Oregon's largest cities have sprung up along I-5. Roseburg's here. It's ranked as one of the most dangerous places in the state. It's very affordable. In fact, you're going to find home prices go up by about $1,000 for every mile you get closer to Portland. It's true. They have people like this in Roseburg.
The closer that we get, the more loco I feel. The posse's on 99, it's time to get ill. My posse's on 99.
Eugene is certainly not balanced politically. This is a place for hippies, fella. The homeless druggies, the college burnouts, hipsters, Portland light, more pot dispensaries than almost anywhere else in the country. It's very diverse here, if that's your thing. Not everyone here is a hippie, of course. There's a decent amount of job opportunities here. While Eugene is home to the University of Oregon, their rival to the north, Oregon State, is located in Corvallis. It's a very agriculture-focused community, so it's a much larger conservative crowd. Then you get to Salem, which is, again, very liberal. This is where we get into the whole homeless drug thing going on in Oregon. The Willamette Valley has the most actual residents in Oregon, as well as the most transient residents. This stretch is homeless central, fella. Drive along I-5 from Eugene to Portland, and you're going to see homeless tents at practically every exit, even lining the underpasses and banks of the freeways. This has been a contentious development among Oregonians. The state is very generous with welfare benefits. A homeless person can get a free tent. Drugs are everywhere, helped by Oregon's loose drug laws, which have pretty much made any drug you can think of legal, or decriminalized. That means you can do drugs here without getting in trouble, but you still can't sell them, which is weird. The state pays for drug treatment programs by taxing pot sales. They tax drugs, and then they use money to help people stop doing drugs.
And I don't think that Portland really has like the dangerous gangs like that. It's just like anarchists and druggies. I mean, our state overall is being overrun by druggies. It's even in my little town. So outside of my little town, right along the freeway, there's this tent city, and it's getting bigger. Like just about every week, you're seeing it grow and grow, and it's bizarre. It's unlike it. We've always had a few homeless people, but now it's like these major encampments. And then in Portland, from what I understand, it's way beyond that. It's just like massive cities of tents and homeless people. But yeah, it's crazy. I can't believe how much there's in my little town. It's like, I don't know what they do here. They all camp out they're actually right along the 5. So if you're going through Roseburg, you just look and there's people on either side of the freeway. And I think what a horrible place to be homeless. It's just, we got pretty nasty weather oftentimes. What's funny too, is I was commenting to my wife when we were going by the other day, and I was like, man, some of these people actually have like really nice, like high-end tents that they're camping in. I'm like, where are they getting these things?
Which brings us to Portland. More than half of Oregon's population lives in the greater Portland area. While it's all trucks and guns out east and teeny, gloomy communities along the coast, Portland is the center of everything that goes on in this state. As Portland goes, so goes the rest of Oregon. Is Portland weird? Yes, but it's certainly not the laid-back, inexpensive, quirky place it once was. Sure, there's a lot of hippies here, but there's an edge in Portland now that draws on politics and race and gender identity and any other thing you can think of that can divide a population. And it's certainly not inexpensive anymore either. It's becoming more and more crowded. Portland's very green, and it's all about cycling and recycling. It's microbreweries and chic coffee houses and skinny jeans and dog baskets on bikes and tattoos. And snobs. Spend a weekend in Portland and you'll run into all sorts of people in this snob family tree. There's wine snobs, weed snobs, coffee snobs, beer snobs, vape snobs, farmers market snobs, homeless snobs, hippie snobs, Antifa snobs, political snobs, environmental awareness snobs, vegan snobs, music snobs, skateboard snobs, mustache snobs, man bun snobs, dreadlock snobs, lesbian snobs, hipster snobs, techie snobs, umbrella snobs, food truck snobs, tattoo snobs, hiking snobs, biking snobs, dog snobs, cat snobs, organic snobs. But it's also homeless people, druggies, Antifa, protests, BLM, and a lot of hate.
It's just a bizarre place. And then, you've seen all the rioting and looting that's been going on through the pandemic. And it's really sad. And it is driving out like business owners, because I've seen so many business owners on the news that are like, I supported the cause. I supported it. I had like signs in my window saying I support this, and then they smashed in my windows and they stole my merchandise. And it's like people are like confused because they're like they want to support these movements, but then the people are just like crazy and they go and so it's like I think it's going to become a place where nobody's going to run a business because it's like nobody's safe. You don't know when the mob's going to turn on you, even though you support the mob. So yeah. It's just a really bizarre place, and it used to be such an awesome place.
You can break Portland up into 5 different quadrants: Southeast, Northeast, Southwest, Northwest, and North Portland. Each region has its own different lifestyles and cultures and demographics and cost of living. You can do an entire video just on the different regions in Portland, but generally, east of the river is more populated and it's more beat up, it's more artsy and laid back and has a lot more drug users. The west side has more fancy restaurants and hotels and tech companies. It's where most of the people from California move to. The west side also has Hillsboro, aka Hills Burrito, because of the number of Latinos there. That's their term, not mine. Don't judge me. That's Portland people saying that. Nobody in Portland likes the people in Vancouver, Washington. They call it Vantucky. Portland ranks in the top for many interesting categories, which helps explain the city's progressive values. Portland's in the top 10 for both breweries per capita and coffee shops per capita. It also has the most strip clubs per capita. It's the 5th gayest city in the country. It ranks 5th for weed dispensaries. It ranks 1st for number of people who bike to work. It's also the whitest big city in America. 76% of Portland is white. And of course, Nike's headquarters is here. If you work for Nike, you can't wait to tell people you work for Nike. Portland gets a lot of rain, but it's more of a gloomy, drizzly mist most of the time. Portlanders don't use umbrellas. You can spot an outsider because they use them. Oregon's a beautiful state and an outdoors paradise. It's been called the greenest state of all. 70% of Oregonians take advantage of their environment by exercising, which is why it ranks as the 5th healthiest state. It's growing, but not as fast as it once was. While Metro Portland is exploding, areas along the coast, in the south, and in eastern Oregon are either losing people or not growing at all. Oregon's a changin', pal. It's very liberal in its laws, and the divide between the left and the right is growing. Many are tired of the higher taxes and the welfare handouts, and the disproportionate power Portland has over the rest of the state. But both sides can agree on one thing: environmentalism, and, in a sense, keeping Oregon's natural environment clean and pure. Politics aside, Oregonians are proud of their state's natural beauty and its resources. Okay, so that's a pretty good summary of Oregon, huh? Yeah, we talked about all kinds of stuff, like the different areas in the state and the kind of people that live in each area and the pros and cons of living in different regions in Oregon. It's a very beautiful state and a very complicated one too. We could have talked about a lot of stuff, like the gold rush history here, or how there's parks and gardens all over the state, or how people here have to pump their own gas, but we have to go. I think I hear a tsunami warning and I should probably get to higher ground. Homeless people, cowboys, hippies. It is such a big state and there is so much to see, but there's issues. There's a lot of small towns where there's folks who don't want to be noticed. There's a lot of Portland people who just want the world to notice. All the things they do in Portland is to be themselves, but always others in the state are like, can't we just live our lives in solace? It's a state of drugs, but there's more to it than that. Oregon is complicated. Hipsters, ranchers, mountains, beaches, skiers, vegans, gays, and freaks. There's a different feel here. Just take a trip with me and see waterfalls and ocean cliffs and forest deep with lots of trees. Some wear Wranglers, some wear suits, and then there's those in skinny jeans. It's a state of drugs, Hipsters, ranchers, mountains, beaches, skiers, vegans, gays, and freaks. There's a different feel here. Just take a trip with me and see waterfalls and ocean cliffs and forest deep with lots of trees. Somewhere Wranglers, somewhere suits, and then there's O's and skinny jeans. Why is Oregon becoming a location, central gathering point for homeless druggies?
I think it's probably just the welfare programs and stuff that they're giving them. And I heard that like up north in Seattle, I know they give out tents. And I think there's got to be something like that going on here, because I'm like, I don't know where they're getting all their tents. Obviously, it's like super easy to get stamps and welfare and all this. And yeah, it's crazy. And then I don't know if you've heard of this. This cracks me up. So there's a thing that people are doing like crazy. So our bottles have a 10-cent deposit on them here. So what tons of the homeless people do, they'll give them like a flat of like a crate of bottles, and they'll take them to where they recycle, and they'll dump all the water out and turn in the cans just to get a couple bucks to go get some booze or some drugs or whatever. It's funny because you'll go to the can recycling place and you'll see a whole bunch of little lids all over the ground. You're like, yeah, I know what went down here, and it'll be all wet. Ridiculous.
Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great! You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more. You can also now buy my songs on iTunes and other formats. Click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. And remember, while we all might have different views, we should all be nice to each other and try to make the U.S. a better place in a positive way.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.